We're doing some experiments here with halftone stencils, and we're comparing them to traditional stencils just to see what can be done with them. And I've got this image of Shakira that I've stencilized. I've broken it up into three color separation with a traditional stencil, the white layer on the left top there, the mid-tone layer, and then the darkest layer here. And it's a simple three-color breakdown or three-tone breakdown. I'm going to paint it in kind of like in shades of gray because there's in the original image there's obviously the brown hair, I forget if she has green eyes or blue eyes or brown eyes. There's the red lips, the makeup on the lips, the different shades of the tones of her face and her hair and her clothing. So you unless you do 20 layers of color, you're not going to get a good three layer breakdown of a picture of a person who's pictured with bright colored clothing or a deep color skin tones like she has. Then after we do that mid-tone dark three-tone stencil, traditional stencil, then I'm going to do a color stencil in CMYK breakdown, and that's going to use 1, 2, 3 stencils here. It's going to use this first one. This is the yellow stencil. Then I've got the magenta stencil. Then I've got the K or the black stencil on the far right side. The cyan stencil has nothing in it, so there's no blue, there's no aqua, turquoise, cyan in this image, or else it would show up here. You can see that there's a frame here where I would have the cyan if there were any, but it's gone, so I won't paint it. I also have this pure halftone stencil, which is grayscale stencil, and I'm going to compare that directly. I'm going to paint three things. I'm going to paint the three-tone stencil of Shakira here, then I'm going to paint the halftone black and white stencil, then I'm going to paint the halftone stencil of using CMYK color magic, and you're going to see how we go from an image that is really hard to produce any color in whatsoever with 3 or 4 layers, and then we're going to get that color to come out with the halftone stencil. There'll be pluses and minuses. We're going to take note as we go. But let's start with the white wall. I need space for 3. That'll be 1. This will be 2. And this will be 3. Okay. So, like we said, if we start with the traditional stencil, the white, mid-tone, dark, then we already have our white layer here, so we just need to put the mid-tone and the dark down. Always takes us a long time to find these in King Spray because they make it really hard. They keep mixing them up. Where were they? That is the white layer we don't need. That is mid-tone. So let's go ahead and put that there and register it well. Just going to go ahead and pick a gray that's in the middle. I got a bunch of bridges here that I want to clean up, and I'm going to do that as always with a very forgiving cap here. The bridges on this mid-tone layer are a lot less distracting than the bridges on the dark layer, so I don't have to work as hard here. But I'll definitely have more to do on the darkest layer. Many of these bridges I would just remove before I even get to this point. Just cut them right out. If they're not structural, if you don't need them, cut them out. Okay, now we got the gray. Let's put the black down. Again, I'm just going to cover it right up. A lot of times I do a little something more artistic here. Like, for example, I do the eyes really dark and I do the rest of it a little bit less dark just to accentuate the eyes. But I'm really just trying to compare the, nice. I'm really just trying to compare how these stencils work, you know, how this stencil works compared to the halftone stencil. So I'm not being too fancy here. You know, you can take any technique and you can be more artistic with that technique. And I would definitely have a lot of fun with this stencil. Don't know much about the music. I'm not a big, I don't know much of Shakira. Maybe it's excellent, who knows. But this is a pretty popular stencil to download. Some people are finding it on the site. And it's easy to paint because it's 3 tones. And it's a very nice photograph. So. If you watch the other one where we saw how it was an actor's photo headshot, and these areas where the transition came from the light to the mid-tone to the dark, they were really, really irregular, and it had to do with the fact that the headshot had showed his skin tone, showed the blemishes on his skin very clearly, and so every one of those places that were kind of going back and forth, you know, beard stubble does it, any kind of sharp focus on skin tone in the photograph does it, but here, this photograph of Shakira has probably been airbrushed well enough that it has gotten those things out, but of course leaving the details of the eyes, which are very important. Okay, I'm not going to do any more work to cover up the bridges. I like this. It definitely passes my test as a, you know, does it look like Shakira? Yes. Is it easy to paint? Yes. Is it obviously a stencil? Yes, it's a good stencil. Let me now jump into this is kind of the surprise is how well the mid-tone stencil captures the angles of the face in a really interesting way. So I'm going to go ahead and jump into that one. That's going to be that one. I'm trying to look for that one. You can really see it's already up on the wall, but I'm going to put it up again, and then I'm going to fix the bridges so we can see how those work. All right. Oops. A little too close for comfort. So again, this is all black. Just go to the chisel. That's the one we did before, was two layers, and we really had to wait on it because we had to register the first, put the first one up, register it, and put the second one up. This one is it's one and done. What is? Let me go ahead and fix. Let me fix a few of these bridges before we talk about it. Really easy to tell where the bridges are because it's everything that's not on this 45-degree angle. You can see here all these were bridges connecting these two areas that didn't need to be connected. That may or may not be a bridge, but I'm going to still take it out because it's distracting me. And I can't tell what it is. I can't tell that it's something that's not a bridge. There we go. Well, when I compare these two, takes longer to paint, more stencils to clean, more work to do. Takes less time to paint, fewer colors of paint needed. Although, to be honest, I would actually paint this with a single can of black, and I would just do the mid-tone layer with a lighter spray of black. This one is more forgiving up close. Like, you get up close to this one and you still feel like you're in the same picture. This one, you get up close and it starts to look like something else, and that might be what you want. That might be what you want. But there is something more to this too, and that is that when I look at this nose, I just see that the shape of the face, and like my eye is filling in a lot of the detail there about where things are soft and when they're hard and when they go around corners and things. But there's actually more information in this stencil, because these little lines here, you see how this gets subtly darker right here? This shadow of the nose is a little bit darker here than it is here. So you actually have a dark tone, a mid-tone, and a white. And here you have a darker, and then you have black right next to it. So you might have like 5 or 7 different grays represented here. And there could be more. Like if you wanted to cut this stencil with more lines per inch in it, like if you had a super, or if you wanted to blow this thing up to 3 times the size, and you could use the same number of lines per inch, you'd have a lot more detail in this thing, because the width of the lines is very expressive. Like you see the line of where the lips come together, and you see the contour of the lips, because that's the bright point. Here's the red point, and then here's the darker shadow underneath. Like you get that a little bit here, but you kind of guessed, because this is exactly the same tone as this. Whereas over here, this is a lighter tone than this, because this is a darker tone, because these are thicker down here. And you back away and you think to yourself, yes, I know what the shape of that face is better than I know what the shape of that face is. But this one is crisper. And I think in a lot of ways it's nicer. It's also a little bit more flexible, because if I have these 3 stencils and I want to paint this on black, or I want to paint it on mid-tone, let me show you what I mean. I'm going to go ahead and use this mid-tone here, chisel this up. When you have a good 3-color stencil or a good 4-color stencil, 4-layer stencil, it just beats the mid-tone stencils. Let's see here. I don't want that. Oops. There's the white. I'm not going to do that one last. I'm going to do the dark. I'm going to do the black first. Oh, close. Too close. I'll have that for registration for later. Same thing, black all the way in. I'm not going to be artistic. the same as before. Fix these little bridges just so they don't distract us from the point here, which is to show the versatility. You know me, I hate to have a postcard look of a stencil, so when I do something like this, I never paint to the edge with the white. I just throw the white stencil up, and then I paint the part of the image that needs to be white. Like I leave the rest of it in the background, and sometimes that's easy to do. I think it'll be easy to do with this one, we'll see. But sometimes it's not. Sometimes you have to do a little bit of work to figure out where the edges are. Okay, so I want the white one now, and I want to put it right in the right place. So I'm not going to paint this out here. I'm just going to paint this inside here. And that's going to be easy. Like I said, this one turns out to be easy to do. Some highlights in the hair. And I'm going to have some bridges to fix. No big surprise. Let's go ahead and do that before we notice that it doesn't look right. I'm just going to guess that that's also a bridge and not a wrinkle or a dimple, laugh line. Oops. Looks a little like somebody needs to know. Okay. That is something that you can do. Like, you know, imagine the whole wall was that color, and you just wanted to go in and just leave this on this wall, and you just had a beautiful big wall of battleship gray, and you really wanted to put the stencil up there. Well, you could do it because all you're doing is leaving out that mid-tone layer, and you would just have this big wall of gray, and bang, there's the face right on there. It really pops because the white is as white as it can be and the black is as black as it can be. So super, super strong stencil. You could do a different tone for the brightest layer. You could do that white in a day-glow yellow or day-glow orange, and you could do the black in a really deep purple, and you could do in the mid-tone. But the coolest thing would be if the mid-tone were something like a bright blue or a light blue. That would look great too. I should have done that. I should have done the mid-tone in a color, just to show how the stencil's more flexible. You can do more things with it. You cannot paint this mid-tone stencil. You could put it on pink, right? Then the white would be pink, and the black would be black. But you can't make you don't have three colors to work with. You got black and you got white. So that would not be a technique you could do with this mid-tone stencil. Now, that said, all these three are grayscale. Like, you don't see any color in any of these. With the use of a four color printing process like CMYK process, we can make a color image of Shakira on this wall with four stencils. And since there's no cyan in this stencil, in this image, you'll see that we're actually going to do it with three this time. So let's do that and see what it looks like. I'm always going to start with yellow because this is a subtractive process. I'm going to fake it a little bit because in King Spray there's no transparency, so I'm going to do yellow. I'm going to do the yellow full on. And let's see here. Just going to spray it. registered. Spray it on, full on yellow, and then when I go and do the magenta layer, I'm not going to spray it as hard because I don't want to cover up all the yellow. And in those places where there's places where there's a lot of magenta, and if I just hit it with the magenta, I would cover up way too much of the yellow. So that looks like that when we take it off. It doesn't look like much, but that yellow is really going to come in to interact with the other colors you'll see. Stencils are hiding from me. That was that one, so we're not going to use that one this time around. I mean, you could. That's the magenta. You could use that pure halftone, pure grayscale halftone, this one, and you would add more detail, but that would be a little bit cheating because it wasn't in the process. So I'm not going to do that. I'm going to use the one that came out of the computer. Ooh, I already did what I said I wasn't going to do. Let's dial that pressure way down and just give this a light coat all the way around. And maybe I didn't hide all the yellow. Let's see. Okay, I didn't hide all the yellow. That's good. So I'm starting to get a kind of a weedy. This is one thing when you paint the pink over the yellow and you let your eyes kind of like blur a little bit and you look at it, it looks kind of a golden wheat color because there's a little bit of brown in there when you mix that magenta and the yellow. But what's missing is the dark, and we're going to take that last layer there and that dark layer, and we're going to look for the one that has that. You see it's different from that one because in this one we had to, these tones around the nose, these were midtones in the grayscale, but notice that those lines are missing on this black stencil because the work has already been done. There's like no really dark shadows around the nose, and that's why they're not there. So this is the complete 3. No cyan because no cyan in the picture. And nothing that has to add up to cyan is in the picture. Just going to go straight black with this one. And before I take this away, notice that I didn't paint evenly over this. The reason is that some places on this stencil are completely wide open, and some of them offer this space. But in a subtractive printing process, the black would not ever be totally obscure what's underneath it. So if I were to paint this super heavy here, I'll go ahead and just do a little bit more. You would totally obscure the colors that are underneath, and printing is never like totally opaque. That's why CMYK always has the same order. You always paint CMYK in the same order so that black goes on last because it is the most opaque of all the colors. All right, let's take it away. I really see a color photograph here, and this is why I think we need to add color CMYK to the mix with what we're offering with all the stencils, because this does really feel like there's a bunch of different colors. I mean, I can see browns, golds, yellows, even kind of like almost a translucent green in those browns that are in the hair. I'm going to go fix a couple things just so I can look at it without distraction. To black, yeah. Let's see here. These are just bridges. Really not much else to do here. You can't fix every bridge. I mean, you can go in here and you can say, oh, I want that one and I want that one. But there are all kinds of bridges in here. Tick, 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 tick. You're not going to fix all those. Those are part of the pattern. Okay. A lot to like here. There's a lot to like here. Just like in, I'll say it again. I mean, look at the lips as an object. I mean, you know, we do that anyway, right? This looks like a blotch. It looks like a sponge, like, and with a thing through it. And your eye looks at this line and this line and that line and that line and this thing together, and with this bright patch here, and says, "Oh, that's a lip." But when you look at it really close, you don't really see the contour. How things move around when you look at the black and white version or the halftone version. Like I said before, you see a darker shadow here, a lighter shadow here, the color of the upper lip, the line. You clearly make out the line that separates the lips. That's really what halftoning does, is allows you to see a gradient, allows you to see a change. And then when you look at this one, you're just like, that's a big deal. Now, obviously, these lines are not diagonal lines on her face, but when you look at that, you say, oh, those are the corners of the mouth. Those are the corners of the mouth that are darker. So that's why you see a line there and a line there. You back up and you just see a corner of a mouth. You don't see a diagonal line. Likewise, when you look at this, the way the lips move, when you look at it really close, yeah, it's pink. It's pink diagonal lines and yellow straight lines and black lines. But when you back away from it, you say, oh, that's a gradient. That's a bright patch on the lower lip because the lower lip is protruding there and it's catching the light. So this has got a lot of nice things in it. A distracting thing for me is that around the darkest places, in the darkest layer of the stencil, you have blocky edges. And over here, this is not, it's not blocky. It definitely corresponds to the way the hair goes in from dark into light. But over here, this looks like kind of a broken screen door. It looks like a screen door mesh that I punched my fist through, and then it's got a hole in it somehow, jagged hole. I don't like that. I don't like that the jaggedness shows up as a series of right angles here. But that fades with distance. It's not the first thing you notice about the stencil. Another thing that I'm not crazy about is how the edges, like when the black, the darkest layer, is perpendicular to the gradient that's present, and there's actually an edge in here. So this could be a very clean edge, but in fact it's just like chick, 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 chick. And I want this to be cleaner than that. I would like to, if I could, I would take something like, I would take the yellow and go beep, and the pink and beep, and do everything in exactly robot precision to cover this up. I would do little white and pink and everything. But as soon as I touch this with the white, you'll see I'll ruin it, let's see here. I really don't want to ruin it, but I just want to show what's going to happen when I just do the tiniest touch with the white. Like, I've made it very clear, hey, there's a big splotchiness to this thing. I've added a splotch to that thing, so I'm not going to want to fix it. I'm not going to want to do those fixes. I'm only going to fix according to the stencil. I'm not going to fix according to the composition here. I'm not going to try to recompose the image because then it won't look right. It won't look half-toned. So I think for my money for this image, I would go with either the 3 if I want the variation and the flexibility to make a really nice mid-tone, a grayscale reproduction of this image, and I wanted to do something kind of artistic and use some light blue in the mid-tone and do bright, white with yellow in the whitest layer, and then do something dark purple and black in the darkest layer. This would be a great simple stencil to do that with three-layer stencil. If I wanted to get close to the original full color image, would definitely use this halftone color process to do that. I'll try this with a physical stencil, and you'll see that these colors add up even better than they're adding up here in virtual reality space. I think that's all I want to show with Shakira right now. I think I've learned everything that I can learn from using this particular stencil. I'm super happy to have done it here, and let me know what you think.